At 57, nothing prepares you for the moment you realize the money has a deadline. I was sitting at my desk here in my apartment in Florida about 4 weeks ago, staring at a pile of big bills. The kind that come once a year, all at once. Real estate tax, property insurance, and a few others. I did not have the cash sitting in my bank account to cover it. I did not want to touch my main portfolio, so there was only one place the money could come from. A stock I had been holding. A stock that was supposed to pay off my mortgage. Back in September, I looked at that stock and really thought about selling it. I had enough in there to pay off the mortgage on my apartment. That was always the plan. That stock was my mortgage payoff. And honestly, I regret not selling it then. I had the money, I had the chance. And now I look back and wonder why I was foolish enough to wait. It was not greed that stopped me. It was hesitation. The idea of selling all that stock at once felt overwhelming. I was procrastinating, putting off the decision, hoping for a better moment. It did not climb. It dropped to about a quarter of what it had been worth. So now I am sitting at my desk and I have to sell what is left of that stock. Not to pay off the mortgage like I had planned, but just to cover the bills in front of me. And the moment I hit sell, two things became real at once. The mortgage was not getting paid off, and my runway just got shorter. That was the double whammy. That was the moment I knew I had to sit down and actually do the math on how long I could last. Here is the thing I think a lot of people our age will recognize. I had a plan. It was a good plan. Work until 60, pay off the mortgage with the stock I'd been building, retire with a clear runway and no debt on the apartment. That plan worked perfectly, as long as I stayed employed. And that is what nobody talks about. It is not that people over 50 did not plan. Most of us planned carefully. The problem is the plan only works if you get to finish it. And right now, with AI, automation, and companies restructuring, a lot of people in their early mid-50s are sitting on perfectly good retirement plans that depend on 5 to 8 more years of employment. And they might not get those years. That is not a failure of planning. That is the ground moving under your feet. And you cannot plan for an earthquake. So I did the math. I went through everything. Bank statements, credit card statements, every recurring payment, every fixed cost. And when I added it all up and looked at what I had left, the number I landed on was about 3 years. 3 years before it is all gone. Not 3 years of comfort, 3 years of runway. And here is what a lot of people do not think about until it hits them. When you are working, there are costs you never see. They are invisible. Your employer covers them, or they come out of your pay before you ever notice. The biggest one for me, and I think this will shock a lot of people who are still employed, is healthcare. I am paying $1,200 a month for health insurance, just for me. My partner has her own coverage, so that is $1,200 a month just to keep myself insured. If you are covering more than one person, that cost goes up fast. When you are employed, that number is hidden. It is just part of the package you never think about. Then you lose your job, and suddenly it is your single biggest new expense, and nobody warned you it was coming. On top of that, you have the mortgage, the car, food, and the cost of living now is so much higher than it used to be. It puts an extra strain on your finances, and nothing is coming in. I've not earned a single penny since June of last year, not one. So every pound, every dollar you spend is a dollar gone. It does not come back. The balance only moves in one direction. When you see that laid out on a spreadsheet, it changes how you think about time. 3 years sounds like a lot until you realize how fast a month disappears. Once I had that 3-year number, first thing I did was go back through every statement, looking for anything I could cut. Subscriptions, recurring payments, anything that was draining money without me really noticing. I wish I had done this sooner. Even if you are not worried about job loss right now, it is worth a look. Unless you are watching your statements closely every single month, and I certainly was not. Things slipped through. I had Netflix, never used it, cancelled. I had Peacock for football. I love football, or soccer if you are in America, but I was paying for the premium plan with no commercials. So I downgraded the plan with commercials. Do I want to watch commercials? Of course not. But when you are looking at the numbers, that is not the question anymore. And it's not just the obvious ones. When I started this channel about a year ago, I signed up for a bunch of tools and services. Some of them were $300, $400 a year, annual subscriptions. And because they were annual, I had forgotten about them entirely. They do not show up in your statement every month. They show up once a year. I was paying for an Adobe subscription and did not need. Cancelled. When I started, money was not really an issue, so I thought these tools would be a good idea. Some I use and keep, but others just sit there forgotten. Individually, these feel small, $23 here, $25 there, but when you add up 3 or 4 streaming services, a couple of software subscriptions, a tool you signed up for and forgot about, suddenly you're looking at $300 to $400 a month. And that, in this economy, is 2 weeks of groceries. That is real money. The audit did not solve the problem, but it gave me some control. And when everything else feels like it's slipping away from you, control matters. I want to be honest about something, because I think a lot of people will recognize this. There was a period where I was not confronting the numbers. I told myself I was just taking time to regroup, but really I was avoiding the hard questions. And for me, that distance was literal. I was away from home for about 4 months, most of the time in England, some of it in China, visiting my partner. When you're away from home for that long, not a week or 2, but months, you become detached from your reality. You're not in your usual place. You're not doing the usual things. And gradually, the urgency fades. The financial situation does not go away, but it stops feeling immediate. It is like it belongs to a different version of you, the one back in Florida, sitting at that desk. It was only when I knew I was coming back to the US that it started creeping in again. And when I actually got back to Florida and sat down at the desk and opened the bills, that is when it all became real again. That is when I did the math. I am telling you this. If you are avoiding your own numbers right now, I understand why. It's not laziness. It is not irresponsibility. But the distance does not make it go away. When I saw the 3-year number, I had a choice. I could panic or I could plan. The first thing I did was tell my partner, and I think that is crucial both for your own emotional well-being and for your relationship. There is an old expression, a problem solved is a problem halved, and it is true. Sometimes your partner can see things you cannot. They can come up with ideas and solutions that would not have occurred to you because you are too deep in the anxiety to think clearly. The next thing I did was to start looking at how I could generate income. And I see a few paths. There is this channel, building this into something that can sustain itself. There is getting a traditional job with an employer. And there is freelance or building something on my own. If I am honest, I'd rather not go back to an office. When I was living in New York, I commuted to Manhattan every day. I do not want to go back to that. And now the equivalent will be commuting to Miami, and I do not want to do that either. Although I may not have a choice in that. With everything happening in AI and automation right now, I have decided to take some AI courses. That felt like the obvious direction. You hear it constantly. If you do not understand AI in the next year or 2, you're going to be in a difficult position. But it's not just about knowing what AI is, it is about knowing how to use it strategically, not just as someone who types a prompt, but as someone who can manage and direct AI systems. That is a different skill, and that is what I'm working on right now through certification courses. I am not saying that this is the answer for everyone, but I am saying that sitting still was not an option. The 3-year clock is ticking whether I do something or not. I would rather spend that time building than waiting. If you are watching this and you have not done your own math yet, I get it. The numbers might scare you. It scared me. But I promise you, not knowing is worse. Because when you don't know the number, your brain fills in the gap with something worse than reality. You lie awake imagining catastrophe. But when you actually sit down and do the maths, you get something back. You get clarity. And clarity, even when the news is not good, gives you something to work with. Do not bury your head in the sand. It will only get worse. It is always better to act early and do what you can than to avoid it, because avoidance leads to a bad outcome every single time. And I can only imagine what it must feel like for someone who does not have a project or channel to throw themselves into. If you are sending off 100 job applications and hearing back from 20 and maybe getting 2 or 3 interviews out of that, I know how demoralizing that must be. I may be there myself one day. I'm not above that really. None of us are. But here's what I do know. The first step is always the hardest, and the first step is knowing where you stand. I have put together a free checklist, the First Things First guide, that walks you through exactly what to do in those first few weeks after losing your job. The financial audit, the subscriptions review, the conversations you need to have. Link in the description below. And in my next video, I'll be talking about what really hit hardest after 8 months without a paycheck. And I'll tell you now, it was not the money. Cheers!
Empower over 50 now. Stand up tall and take your bow. Feel the rhythm, feel the power. This is your triumphant